Definitely. But we all need friends, especially at work, right? So, believe it or not, having a friend at work is probably one of the most important things that you're going to have at work. Because if you have a best friend at work, you're likely to be a much nicer and happier person. Believe it or not, right? You're actually able to engage with customers and partners better. You're getting more done in less time. Believe it or not, your productivity goes up. You basically get support of a safer workplace, fewer accidents and reliability concerns. So everybody's there doing what they need to do. You also have someone you can share ideas with, and you'll actually have more fun at work. And this is actually a documented survey. It's actually documented research out of Gallup in 2022. So having a friend at work is actually this huge mental release. It is a way of maintaining your stability and a job, because friends really matter. Believe it or not, friends really matter. So what makes friends more important is that you have a shared experience in the work environment. And this is one of the things that they really have tried to pound into you when you join the military. This is some of the behaviors you'll see when you join specific cults, is that they really try to do that shared experience, right? They try to have you be trusting and rely on other people within the team. The biggest part, though, is especially if you have that shared experience. So, like one of my best friends and me were working a job, and we each had 1,500 clients. We're the last two people on the job. Everyone else had walked off or quit. The reason why we stayed is because we really loved it, and we just got a new manager in, and we wanted to give that new manager a real big chance. So for 6 months, two people ran that shop with 3,000 clients. But we built up that bond during that event, and it still survives to this day. Even though I'm no longer at that company and he is, we're still bestest friends. I will still go down and meet him. I've met his wife, his children. We've gone out to dinner, the whole 9 yards. But if we didn't have that friendship, that job would have been an absolute chore. It really would have been, right? But it makes it much more likely that we had a chance to vent to each other. We had a chance to share data back and forth. We were able to fix things. We could tell what we needed management. Man, it was just the two of us. We were able to do it. And that shared experience was the basis for making change happen at the company. Both of us walked out with Employee of the Year awards from this experience. Both of us got a pretty nice little chunk of extra change that came in, and we're able to make change in the company. Because of what we're able to accomplish, they're actually able to set some good standards and goals and rules around how to deal with clients, especially when you have a boatload of them. So the interesting part is you start getting better productivity and engagement, especially if you've got camaraderie, right? And that will extend well past the day-to-day and into those exceptional moments, right? And again, this is something they really try to put into you when you're in the military, make you more cohesive, make likelihood that the military unit will come out of anything in good shape, regardless of what the situation is. The big thing is that mutual trust, right? That shared experience. So cultivating and supporting friendships and trust is really important. Again, team cohesiveness, keep it working. But like any other relationship, you really have to keep at it. And your friends are going to matter as you move through the organization, right? The other thing that's interesting about best friends, you have a safe person to vent to or bounce ideas off of. And again, if you kind of keep it not like they're your agony aunt all the time, right? But it kind of helps you out here, because that friendship can be critical to solving a lowest level problem, especially a problem with a manager, right? Because it could be just a personality conflict. Now, again, bad managers have specific things, but if it's a personality conflict between you and the manager, your friend can be that lightning rod for you and help you understand, no, it's not the manager's bad because I really like them, and this is why I like them. You're just having a personality conflict, and those happen as well. A personality conflict between you and your manager is not a bad manager. It's just you just don't like each other, and you're not going to. It's just how that relationship's going to work, right? And your best friend can help you see past any kind of personality issues and see if it actually is a management issue, a trust issue, or something else going on. And again, we all have personality conflicts, and that's not an unexpected thing to have happen. But the thing about having friends or more than one friend is really you do get a sense of belonging, right? You're going to spend a lot of time at work. In some cases, you're going to be spending 120 hours a week, especially if you're trying to ship product, especially if you're in that last ramp up to shipping product. I have spent more 120-hour weeks at work shipping product out than I can actually even imagine. It's just crazy when you're getting ready to go to release to manufacturing, right? But helping friends helps us not with the support group, but if the team is functioning, we have that sense of belonging. We're all in this together, and we really honestly believe it. And this is our team. It's my group. I belong here, and my belonging here is important. Now, managers can go a good long way in supporting this process, and a good manager will make sure that this does happen. A bad manager will be threatened by this. But that best friend, even if you have to keep it on the lowdown, is a good way of helping you manage your way through a process. And this can go for a long time. I'm still connected to students from a decade ago or longer, and I still, know them. I know where they've been. I know their family. I know their kids. I know their kids graduate high school, right? These are all great things because we form that team bond in the degree program and we build that mentoring and friendship relationship, right? And a lot of us stay connected. Facebook is very good for that. So is LinkedIn, right? But from Gallup, 61% of people are in that same boat. 61% of us are still going to keep in contact with people from their previous work. Now, here's the cool part. This can actually really pay off because now you have a circle of friends from previous work positions, right? So if you have this, they become your circle of references, and you already know they're going to give you a good reference. So your work friends can become solid references later on if you leave or if you have to leave or something else happens. So your friends, 61% of us that stay in contact with people outside of this, can actually end up having a really good ability to have good solid references later on from that circle of friends moving to a circle of references. So trying to make friends at work, if you're naturally not an outgoing person, this is going to be a lot of work on your part, right? But if you're naturally outgoing, you're probably doing most of making friends right and left all the time. So that's kind of good for you. But if someone's trying to be your friend and they're not outgoing, then give them the benefit of the doubt on this one, right? Now, what's interesting is that coffee. God, I can't imagine. I know we joke about the pizza party, right, as an incentive program. It's really not. But what's interesting is that we bond over beverages, we bond over food, right? All of our holidays involve some sort of feast, right? Even if it's Valentine's Day, it's a feast of chocolate, right? The only one I can't think of as a feast is like President's Day in the United States. But really, we bond over coffee, we bond over food, we bond over donuts, right? So what was interesting is that at one company, we had a virtual environment. It was all virtual, right? Again, didn't work in an office, but we had a coffee clutch. And it was a great way just doing a virtual Friday morning once a week. Hey, how are things going? What's going on in your group? What's going on in your department? And it was really informally run. And everyone got to say what was going on in their department. You started building a beautiful, beautiful idea of what was really going on in the entire company. You probably at the end of those coffee clutches had a better idea of what was going on in that company than managers did. So those were a really good way of getting that drop in and getting to understand what was going on and finding out what was going on in my region in a way that I would never have found out in other ways. So this was actually really handy. Just bring your coffee, hang out in a 30-minute Zoom meeting or 30 minutes team meeting, go over what you're working on, what you need, how's it going, how's things in your part of the world, and you've got it. You're in good shape. The other one is team events, right? So I don't know if you've ever been to team meetings. You probably have, but playing games are huge, right? When it comes to building team cohesiveness, right? And they can actually be a lot of fun, but you don't want to overdo these, right? You want to keep these at maybe like once a month, but it also helps reinforce messages, right? So if you're doing Jeopardy, you can go and have a category of policy changes this week and go over any policy changes or go over how HR policies, how do I find training, right? And all those other things help reinforce those good positive messages from the company. And these can be run at any level, right? You don't need to be a manager to run these. You can actually have a lot of fun just running that impromptu team meeting and going through and just using a game like Jeopardy to make sure that people understand the policies, the roles, the ethics, and everything else that's going on in a company, and actually just keep them kind of fun. The other thing that's interesting too is companies may have an employee resource group. It may take some time to find these because they're kind of sometimes hidden. Generally, it can be done by human resources. But if you have a really trusted person in the human resources office or in an employee resource group or someone that knows where all the resources can be found, this is a good way of finding out opportunities, right? Education, training, professional development, all that stuff that you may actually be able to get out of the company because of that friendship, right? And again, make sure the friendship is mutually agreeable, that you're both able to do things together, but it really can help you reach a professional goal, and it makes it a lot more friendly than just like going to HR blindly, right? So if you have people in those employee resource groups or in HR, departmental training or whatever, go for it. The other one that's kind of cool too is special interest groups, things like book clubs, car clubs, photography clubs, other kinds of activities. Those open up the door to meeting other people from outside your organization and getting a feel for how other managers are. Fantasy football, March Madness, all that kind of stuff can happen. Some people bond around golf. It used to be around cigarettes. People who were in the smoking area always knew more about what was going on in the organization than people who didn't smoke. So there's a real advantage to smoking back when it was still appropriate to do that. So anything that's work appropriate, from cooking to walking, remember your healthy policy here, right? It's appropriate. And you could start that special interest group. A lot of companies will frown on gambling, so fantasy football and March Madness can be a little weird. But I've known a lot of companies to just kind of say, okay, just March Madness, right? And let it kind of go. So there are ways of doing these special interest groups to kind of develop that process of around having friends at work and making other contacts and other people outside of your immediate organization that you can make friends with, and you can be mutually helpful to each other, right? And again, there's lots of other ideas out there. If you're in an office treats, you can come from any level, right? Workspace decorations, as long as they're appropriate. For some people, even having a bowling league, right? It's just really kind of interesting. Sports teams outside of work is something they can do. It just depends on the leadership and how dedicated the people are to doing outside of work in-person things, including office treats, right? So like when I actually worked in an office, my last office job, I actually had a bowl of chocolate. And the goal for having the bowl of chocolate out and visible was I wanted people to walk into my office and take a candy so we could talk about how their day was going. Because if I found out how their day was going, I would find out about a whole bunch of other things about the company that I was working at that I would never have found out in any other way. And that bowl of chocolates was the greatest source of intel for that company that I could ever have thought of having. But it was a good idea at the time, right? Now, the other thing that makes this interesting too, especially if you want to have friends at work, is always welcome new people. Right. And if you've ever had a really awkward first day, then you probably get that idea. Now, in some of the cases, when I was first welcomed in on a job, I actually had one of the managers at the time said, I wouldn't have hired you. So I'm like going, well, thank God you weren't in the interview. Thank God you were out, because I'm really happy to be here. But man, that set a really bad tone for that company. Right? So welcome them. Don't tell them that you wanted someone else. Don't tell them you hired the wrong person. Don't tell them I wouldn't have hired you. There are some people with absolutely zero emotional regulation that will tell you this to your face on your first day of work. And that's really harmful, right? So be nice to the new person. Give them the room to show you who they are. Shouldn't have to say that, but man, I'll tell you what, even if they weren't your first choice, you're going to be working with them for a while. So you might as well try to make them your friend if you can, right? So kind of summary on this one, right? So friends at work are super helpful. They help you make connections inside and outside your organization, among the entire organization, and it can end up being a circle of references and a circle of friends. You know, by the data, you're going to feel better, be more connected to work if you have a best friend at work. Now, there's some real simple ways of making connections. Some of us are going to be more socially awkward than others, so some of us are going to have to really work on it. But I'll tell you what, man, that coffee klatch was a really cool way of doing things, and it's a really low order kind of process, right? If you can get away with it, you should do something like that. But in the longer run, a good friendship network really will help what's building in at work. It will give you some lifelong friendships and some support. But the coolest part is that it gives you this whole other viewpoint of the company. You may be suffering underneath a horrible manager, but other people may not. And you can use this kind of information to find out if there's a transfer, an opening, or something else that can really help you advance your career at that company. So friends end up becoming your way of being able to laterally transfer into other groups. And that's kind of it for why you want to have a friend at work. And I'll see you in the next lecture.